Hi guys, today we are talking about fingerprints. So this is the start of our physical evidence unit. And we're going to start by diving into fingerprints, what they are, the types of fingerprints, and what makes them unique. So fingerprints are super important to crime scenes because it is an infallible means of establishing one's identity. No two people in the entire world have the same 10 prints of fingerprints. The friction ridge patterns begin to form during the third month of fetal development and never change throughout the lifetime unless they are physically altered by the individual. Ways that fingerprints can be altered are burns, cuts, scars, or even chemical removal. There are 9 types of fingerprints. Plain arch, tented arch, both of those are arches. Ulnar loop and radial loop. An ulnar loop flows towards the bone that runs from the elbow to the pinky, or the ulna bone. And then the radial loop flows from and towards the radius, or the bone that runs from the elbow to the thumb. Then we have a double loop, a lateral pocket loop, a central pocket whorl, a plain whorl, and an accidental. There are actually 3 types of loops: the ulnar loop and radial loop, and then the lateral pocket loop is a loop. The double loop, the central pocket whorl, the plain whorl, and the accidental are all considered whorls. Arches make up about 5% of the world's fingerprints. Now, there are about 7.8 billion people on Earth, and each person should have 10 fingerprints. 5% of those are arches. They're categorized by a distinct incline and then decline of the overall pattern, entering and exiting opposite sides of the print. They can either be super subtle, like this one, which is a plain arch, or dramatic, like a mountain that creates a tent inside. That tent makes it a tented arch. Loops are about 60 to 65% of the fingerprints on Earth. Loops are described based off of the direction in which they loop. Ulnar loops loop towards the pinky or the ulna bone. Radial loops loop towards the thumb or the radius bone. Lateral pocket loops are 2 loops that are present and appear to be connected to one another. So our pinky would be right here. Our thumb would be here. We loop from and back towards the pinky, from and back towards the thumb, and then we have 2 loops, seemingly one on top of another. That's our lateral pocket loop. Whorls make up the remaining 30 to 35% of the fingerprints. They are classified by a circular shape that are similar to a bullseye. A plain whorl is also just called a whorl. A lateral pocket loop or a lateral pocket whorl, it has both names, is one distinct bullseye that teardrops in one direction. A double loop contains 2 different non-connected loops that cannot be classified as either an ulna or a radial. And then an accidental is a mix of various different shapes and patterns together and cannot be classified as by a single characteristic. Here is our plain whorl, so that bullseye, our lateral pocket loop or a lateral pocket whorl, that single bullseye that pinches in a teardrop shape towards one direction. Double loop comes from opposite directions, but they are not connected. And an accidental, typically it's some type of arch and whorl together. Is that back in there? So it's all about the details. Once you have identified the overall classification of a fingerprint, the friction ridge patterns are then broken out into minutiae. Minutiae are smaller features such as short ridges, bifurcations, which are splittings of ridges, dots, and ridge endings. These unique arrangements are what make the pattern of your fingerprints unique to just you. Some of the minutiae that we will talk about are ridge endings. That's just the stopping of a ridge in a pattern. A bifurcation, a splitting of one ridge into 2. A dot, a very, very short ridge surrounded by two other ridges. An island is longer than a dot, but it is still a short ridge. A lake is when two ridges split and then reconnect with no dot or island in the middle. A hook is a bifurcation where one ridge stops. A bridge is a short ridge that connects two longer ridges, and a double bifurcation is one ridge that splits twice. Visually, here is our ridge ending, our bifurcation, that ridge splitting twice, a dot, an island, a lake, which is also called an enclosure, a hook, which is also called a spur, a bridge, and then a double bifurcation. This is a YouTube video you can watch for reference. Your assignment today is going to be to work on the fingerprint worksheet that will be due by the end of class.